It's 3 a.m. Your pager blares, jolting you awake. 911, emergency section. You jump out of bed, scramble to gather your things, stumble out the door, and run down the hall, your mind racing as you rush to this delivery. When you arrive, it's a scene of controlled chaos. The nurses are prepping equipment, the anesthesiologist is intubating the mother. You can feel the tension in the air. It's a 20-year-old G1 P0, minimal prenatal care. They're worried that she's abrupted. There's fetal decelerations. Moments later, a lifeless, blue 400-gram baby boy is brought over onto the resuscitation table. Your team springs into action. They intubate, ventilate, chest compressions, epinephrine. Every second feels like an eternity. As neonatologists, we often face these sudden life and death situations. We have to make critical decisions. Even when we're tired and it's exhausted and it's chaotic, we rely on our experience, our training, and our gut feelings. But is that really the best way? Does that ever backfire? So this is where AI enters the picture. It offers promises of precision and accuracy that our exhausted gut decisions sometimes lack. So imagine an AI system in that critical moment that can be there. It doesn't get tired. It's always focused. It knows all the literature, and it can give you answers in an instant. It claims it can analyze thousands of similar cases, factoring in details you may not know or be in the heat of the moment that you may not think about. Would you trust that? Would you trust that baby's life on an algorithm? This isn't a hypothetical situation. This is a reality we will soon face. As AI advances in the field of neonatology, it brings with it a host of ethical dilemmas that challenge the core of our profession. And like any powerful tool, it has its limits and its dangers. So I want to step away from the NICU so we can understand this differently. Let's think about a massive cruise ship. So we're in Florida, lots of cruise ships here. At first glance, this may not seem like a valid comparison, but there's a lot of similarities between the NICU and a cruise ship. I remember my first cruise. Boarding that massive cruise ship was overwhelming. It was a floating city. There was 24/7 food, entertainment at your fingertips, no dishes to wash. We sailed the Caribbean by day, exploring islands, and at night we were entertained. Everything seemed exciting and easy. But underneath the surface, a cruise ship, like a NICU, is a complicated system full of countless moving parts. There's a constant flow of data. You have to navigate things. You have to think about all the passenger logistics. There's a lot of similarities with that. And you can imagine with the cruise ship, kind of like we're thinking with AI and neonatology, think about how some of these different scenarios might go. So you have the dream vacation where you're pampered, you're entertained, and you return home relaxed. AI is going well. You have the nightmare at sea. Engine trouble, illness spreads, all the passengers are sick. Your floating paradise now feels more like a prison. AI is not going so well. And then there's the nightmare at sea. The unthinkable happens. You hit an iceberg. The unsinkable ship is going down, and there's not enough lifeboats. So where are we now with AI? Well, the truth is, we're just beginning this journey. A lot of uncertainty is ahead of us. With neonatology right now, we need to say, are we boarding a AI cruise ship for a medical utopia, or is this going to be a high-tech Titanic? So a lot of question marks. Currently in neonatology, we're doing some exciting things with AI. It's being tested and developed in NICUs. Machine learning can now predict sepsis 8 hours before a baby gets sick. It can look at brain MRIs and analyze them. It can detect ROP. It can predict extubation success. These are exciting advances, but they're still like our patients in their infancy. So how are they going to affect our workflow, and how are they going to impact our patients? So that brings me to a story I want to talk to you about that really profoundly affected me, and it also made me think about AI. So I was starting a 30-hour shift, and I just began my rounds in the NICU. I get a page from the PICU They've got a 5-day-old little girl who's got pneumonia. She's been there for 2 days, and she's having apneic spells. Could I come down? It's not urgent. Well, shortly later, I go down, and I walk into Charlie's room, and I see her parents sitting on the couch, Rowan and Kaya, and they look a little nervous, and I sit and introduce myself, and then I go over to Charlie, and she's struggling to breathe. And I recommended put a neck roll under her, reposition her, and I did a careful exam, and I could appreciate that her liver felt enlarged. So I went to the fellow, have you checked LFTs on her? No, we haven't checked LFTs. Well, I'm worried she could have something else beyond pneumonia. Maybe she has herpes simplex virus. Please check some LFTs. If they're high, you need to start acyclovir. And also, I'd love to take her in the NICU. I get a call. Her LFTs are through the roof. She comes up to the NICU. When she comes up to the NICU, she looks a little different now. She's breathing in a way that I just don't like, and I'm watching her breathe. So I talk to her parents. I say, we're going to intubate her. She's struggling. So we go ahead and intubate her. We get her settled. And I said, let's get some coags, just because she's got liver injury. So I talk to the parents, and I check the coags. They're also super elevated. So fortunately, we're on acyclovir. I order FFP, I order cryo, I order platelets. And as I'm sitting at my computer looking at the labs, I remember there was another baby in that same room who had vitamin K deficiency bleeding and had massive hemorrhages and almost died. I'm like, I wonder if Charlie got vitamin K. I look up, she hadn't, her parents had refused. I'm like, oh, vitamin K deficiency and HSV, this is a disaster. I go to the room, rush over there, sit with the parents, talk to them, even printed up an article that I'd written on it. They agreed to give the vitamin K. Check on Charlie, she's doing okay. I then have to go across the unit. There's another little baby who I'd been at this one's delivery, and this is a tiny little growth-restricted baby, now much bigger, but it had liver failure of unknown etiology and an abdomen the size of a volleyball, and was having trouble breathing. I was going to do a paracentesis on this baby. I have everything set up, ready to go. The nurse comes in and she says, we need you back in Charlie's room right now. Her blood pressure's dropped, and so is her oxygen level. And I was just there. So I stop what I'm doing, I run over. She doesn't look good. She's pale, she's gray, her oxygen levels are low. I'd already ordered pressors, so we start the pressors, I give a bolus, ordered blood, called in the cardiologist who came in by Uber. She wheels in her echocardiogram. The room's full of motion. The parents are a little bewildered, wondering what's going on, so I'm trying to update them. I'm standing there watching Charlie, and all of a sudden blood starts to shoot out of her ET tube, bright red blood. So I give her epi down the tube, turn up her PEEP. Seems like we've stabilized her. Staying in the room, and then I'm watching the monitor, and I'm watching her. And I see her heart rate, 110, 90, 60, 40. Start chest compressions. Give epinephrine, give more epinephrine, give more epinephrine. 6 doses of epinephrine. And her family's right there the whole time. The room's very chaotic. And I'm talking to her parents, and I said, Charlie's, this infection is too overwhelming. She's dying. We need to stop. Her mother grabs me, literally grabs my scrubs, and looks into my eyes and says, you have to save my baby. You cannot let her die. So 1 more dose of epinephrine. The nurses wheel on the couch. With speed and skill, they disconnect her and give her to her parents. The room then clears out, and I step back, and I'm just watching her with 2 nurses. And the mom is just wailing and crying, and the dad's trying to comfort her. And there's blood on the floor, and there's blankets all over, and there's blood on the blankets. And after about 10 minutes, I walk over and I kneel down, get on the floor, listen to her. Charlie has died. I leave her room after that, and then I go back to that other baby and do the paracentesis and remove about 90 mils of straw-colored fluid. Then I go back and talk to the parents, sit with them. It's like 4 a.m. now, and talk about what happened. Talk about an autopsy. Later that day, the baby I did the paracentesis on dies. 2 deaths in 2 days. The next day, I go to Charlie's autopsy, and I'm looking at her, and I'm just thinking, wow, like her parents had all these hopes and dreams. They were home. Like, you know, she was going to be this, they had all these, like, she's going to be a little girl running around at the park. And now she's dead on that table. And I was just thinking about all the things I wondered about, and I thought about AI. Could it have helped? Could it have, those gut feelings I had, all those times I wondered, could it have done the same thing? Could it have maybe earlier diagnosed this and figured it out so we were ahead of the curve and this never even happened and she'd be alive? But could it have sat with the parents? Could it have comforted them? Could it have talked about an autopsy in an empathetic way? And it made me think about AI, how it's exciting, but we need to keep humans, patients, parents, providers at the center. So how will AI make us better? Well, AI can perceive things in ways that we are not capable of seeing. And if we think of in the NICU, we see all these different images. And if you look at this image, this is a book. It's War and Peace by Tolstoy. Big book, 560,000 words. I can see it's a big book. It's got gold leaf, and it's got those words on it. But if you look at this, I can say, oh, this is a retinal image. See blood vessels, optic disc, and the fovea. But AI can see things in ways that we're not even capable of. So when it looks at a retinal image in an adult, and also baby, it can see things that you wouldn't expect. It can detect if you have kidney disease, or liver disease, or a risk for stroke, or heart disease. It can detect if you're male or female, early Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, BPD. It's like looking at those audio stereograms where you stare at them and you're trying to see an image. It can see what's in there, and all these buried layers of information. So it's this powerful tool that we can utilize. But with this tool, how do we best use it? And what are some of the challenges we may have with it? So if you think of a scenario where there's a baby you're struggling to take care of. This baby's fighting, but you don't know if this baby's going to make it. But you look in that baby's eye and you feel like, I think this baby can make it. And you feel the little hand touch your finger. But AI says, no, the baby's not going to make it. So do you trust AI, or do you trust your gut or your experience? What if there's conflict with the parents? AI is predicting severe disabilities, but the parents want to go on. How do you balance that decision? How do you balance your intuition with AI recommendations? These are the struggles I think that we're going to be facing with AI. There's a lot of hype with it, there's a lot of excitement, but there's a lot of ethical challenges that we need to sort out. So if we think of our patients, they need to be in the center. Their best interest is in the center. That's why we do what we do. And we have shared decision-making with parents. Maybe that shared decision-making will include AI. They say there's no I in team, but maybe there should be an AI in team, right? We maybe need to include AI. We need to avoid harm, and we need to promote justice. And as we navigate these waters, are we going to get stuck? Are we going to come up against an ethical rock or a sandbar? Is the water going to freeze over? What's this going to look like? I think there's a lot of uncertainty. AI could also help navigate through that, but we also have to be careful that it doesn't cause us to shipwreck. If we think about issues like justice, diversity, and equity, we have a lot of problems with that right now in the NICU. And AI often mirrors what we are as humans, so it's pulling things, and our bad traits can be reflected in AI. So with AI, we have a chance to get this right, or we can make things worse. We can perpetuate it. We also want to make sure we think of the broader scale. There's 140 million births in the world. Most of those are occurring in low and middle income countries. Almost 5 million children die every year. And about 2.3 million of those are neonates, and they often die in their first day. What about them? Are we including them in this, or are we excluding them? How is AI going to reach those in most need? Around 700 million people in our world live in extreme poverty. That's less than $2.15 a day. So in settings where you're resource limited, where the hospital or the clinic may be hours or a day away, is there a better way? Could a healthcare worker, everyone has cell phones, so could a healthcare worker talk to that mother, that patient, and use AI to guide decision-making in ways that we couldn't do that before, and still give a high level of care? So how good does this have to be for us to use it? And if we don't use it, what are the consequences of it in these settings? I said there's 140 million births every year. So in India, there's an organization called Arman, and this is led by Dr. Aparna Hegde, where they're leveraging the power of AI with smartphones to empower millions of women to improve their health and pregnancy. So this is doable. So the question is, how good does it have to be? How good are the tools we have now in the NICU? So what trust level do we have to with AI? What are the consequences of using it versus not using it? And we don't want to leave those behind that are in grave need. So AI, the ethical issues around AI, they're already here, and they're just going to get more pressing as AI continues to evolve. The choices we make today will affect neonatology in the future. We are the guardians of these babies. That's our job. With AI as an ally, we can guide it, and it maybe takes us to places that we couldn't imagine with improvement of care. But we also needed to uphold our ethical principles. So how do we do that? How do we make sure that we use AI properly? And with this, we want to make sure that we uphold our ethical principles. We want to make sure that we have transparency. They talk about the black box of AI. We need it to be more of a glass box. You're not going to need to know every billion calculation it does in a second, but we need to know enough so we can trust it, right? Just like we need to know about how a ventilator might work. I don't need to know how to build it, but I need to know how to work it. So there needs to be some level of transparency. We also need to diversify the crew. Are we just having industry make all this, or are we having parents involved? Are we having nurses involved? Voices from every corner of the NICU involved so that we do this right, so the right people are represented and AI is accountable. We also need to embrace humanity. So we should be the ones hugging the parents, holding the hand, comforting the parent. I don't want AI to do that. We're really good at that as humans. So I want to make sure that we stay human-centered with AI and use it to help us. We need to stay curious, so we need to learn about AI. We need to read about it. We need to get familiar with it. You don't need to know how to code, but you need to have some familiarity with it. We also need to make sure that with AI, that we speak up. So we have to have a culture where we can question things like we would any other thing in science and have our voice heard and not be afraid about that, about speaking up. So the AI ship has left the dock. It's here. The story of neonatology, unlike War and Peace, is being written right now, and we all need to be co-authors with that. Remember that 911 call, we didn't get into neonatology for the easy days. There's going to be tough days ahead. There's going to be storms. But we got it in it for when, against all odds, that baby survives that 911 emergency, goes on to become a feeder grower, gets out of the NICU, so it goes home healthy. And then you get a holiday card and you don't recognize who's on it. Like, who is that person, right? And they're heading to college. Those are amazing moments for all of us. AI can hopefully free us to have more of those moments, right? But we need to make sure we do this right, and now is the time to steer the ship so we end up where we want to be. We don't want to wait till we're about to hit something. So it's early enough that if we all get involved, we can do this. We wanted that call we had in the beginning, that 3 a.m. call, with AI as our ally and guided by us, we can make more of those moments. We might make those frantic moments into miraculous ones. The tiniest lives are counting on us. So let us together make AI a journey of hope, healing, and human connection, augmented by AI, but always guided by our hearts. Thank you.